Hello everybody, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and today I would like to share with you guys my final thoughts on the Miguron knives moyarl. I hope I'm pronouncing it right, or at least decently. This, I'm going to tell you guys up front, is essentially a perfect sub $50 knife. There hasn't been anything up to this point that I could say the same about. And we'll go ahead and talk about all the little things that make this what I will call a perfect knife. So I purchased this after seeing Lefty EDC's rant review about this thing. He was obsessed about it. He was saying it was like a really great budget knife. This could be somebody's one and done budget beater knife. And you know what? I stand right there with him. The guy wasn't kidding. Kevin, he's a very picky individual. He has extremely high standards. So for him to speak so highly of this kind of knife that looks kind of meh on the surface, looks kind of like whatever, as you're scrolling through looking at a bunch of cool knives, this is one that 9 out of 10 people would just blow right by. As I did, actually. This model has been around for not a long time, but it's been around for a couple months, I believe. And yeah, I saw it and I just kept swiping because I didn't think it was anything special, and I felt like that around $50 I could have spent towards something a little bit nicer. But you know what, I'm glad that I took the leap to get this little guy, and it's been a wonderful experience so far. So I purchased this off of Amazon. I think there are other retailers that you can get it on, but the fastest place that's going to ship it to you regardless is going to be Amazon. So I got this thing in like 2 days with Prime. The price on this is $47.95. I'm not too sure if Miguron does any discounts or coupons that you can add, but I know some other like Chinese OEMs have stuff worked out with Amazon where they have that, so I'm not too sure if maybe one day they will. But you know what? Again, still sub $50. This thing is worth every single penny. So $47.95, and I'm not really the biggest fan of pulling specs off of Amazon, but really the only thing they have here is the weight, and it says 4.1 ounces. I do have a little scale here that we can check that real quick. And I can't even find the specs here anyway. But yeah, that doesn't matter. I have a bunch of size comparison knives that I think will definitely be more than enough to help you guys see what this thing is all about. 4 ounces, that's perfectly fine. This is actually one of the knives where when you look at it, you don't think it's really gonna weigh much because you see all the G10, right? And it's like, okay, well, it should be pretty light. But you know what? This thing has some heft to it, and it's because of these pretty thick steel liners. The steel liners have very large and very well and clean machine pockets in them. You can actually see them in there. So on both sides. But they are not inset. They're all they're exposed steel liners, so that's where a lot of the weight comes from. If they were inset, or there was another way around it, or maybe if the progression of what this knife could be in the future is as a possible frame lock or something like that, I'm sure the weight would fluctuate and probably be for the better anyway. But you know what, it's 4 ounces. It's not a deal breaker at all. So let's bring out some size comparison knives. Alrighty, we have here the Spyderco PM2. So next is Spyderco Native 5. I'm so happy that my PM2's smoothed out as much as it has. I don't carry it all too often, but every once in a while I do pull it out to just flick it and play with it and stuff. This is Benchmade Osborne at 940, Benchmade Bug Out. So it is pretty much the same length as the Bug Out. Cutting edge is, you know what? I think the Bug Out just has a hair more, but that's because of the full-size finger choil space you got there. So in comparison to the bug out, I will say that this is very blocky feeling, but again, I'm not expecting crazy contoured machining and all that kind of stuff at this price point. This is Demco 80-20.5, last but not least, Civivi Elementum. So yeah, pretty much a whole lot bigger than the Civivi Elementum, honestly. When I was about to buy this thing, I was hoping that it was more of the size of the Civivi Elementum, but I didn't take into account the large finger troll there. But you know what, now that I have it in hand, couldn't be any happier. I'm very happy with this thing. It's a wonderful experience overall. The blade material on this, if I didn't mention before, is 14C28N. I don't know the HRC on it, but it's performed just fine. I haven't even had to put my own edge on it. So from the factory, the edge was wonderful. I always forget to do a little paper factory edge test on my unboxings because I'm just like, oh my god, I got a new knife, so I'm all excited about, you know, the new knife and stuff. I always forget about testing the edge. But I always carry a little leather pocket strap, and so I've been keeping the factory edge alive, and it's been wonderful. So I've been using this knife to break down a lot of cardboard boxes when we go like bulk food shopping, and a lot of stuff comes in like thick cardboard boxes. Yeah, you can definitely hear that this thing definitely needs to be touched up. It's a still completely fine working edge, but if I had better camera quality, you could see that the paper is starting to get that fuzz. So the less fuzz, the sharper, I guess the finer the edges, but there's still no chips, no rolls. It's still very bitey by the tip, and even still getting some nice little curlies there, which is quite wonderful. I got this knife kind of around the same time that I got my Hinder XM18 3-inch, and so I was using that for a lot of harder use. This didn't see any kind of use like that, but I'm sure it would have held up just fine if I did. So going back to talking about the steel liners, I don't mind that they are visible. It is very thick. You know, let's do, damn. Okay, well, this is really the only stock comparison knife, but the Demco 80-20.5 is actually significantly thinner than this Miguron knife. So it is the same thickness as 2 of the steel liners and 1 of the G10 scales. So that is something to consider. A lot of people may not like how thin this is, so if you have experienced the 80-20.5 and you're not a fan of how thin it is, I think this might be just enough for you. It feels just as blocky as the 80-20.5, but some people don't mind it. If you have larger, meatier fingers, then that extra cushion will definitely be a little bit better. But in my case, I have large to extra large size hands but slim fingers, so I definitely feel some of these edges. They are still very well machined and knocked down, but you can definitely tell that this is a very blocky design. You have completely flat scales, but you know, still everything is knocked down. One thing that I want to mention before I forget, because I'm probably going to forget during my ramble, is I definitely enjoy that the tip of this blade is very deep in there. It is very well set. You cannot pick that out for nothing. I can't even, I can barely even touch it. And this will work itself out after a couple sharpenings. You can actually, if you stick your finger in there, you can actually touch the very, very heel of that edge there. And if this had my edge on it, just doing this, yeah, that wouldn't be so fun. But that's probably something that I'm gonna have to deal with. I might even blunten literally just the tiniest little bit of that, because it's really only everything below my finger there is what you can touch. The rest of the edge is well inset into the handles and you can't feel it. You'd really have to dig for it. And I have really short nails right now, but you know, I suppose your mileage may vary if you have, you know, longer nails or maybe even thicker fingers. So you may not run into that issue, but at least for me, that's something that I did notice. I always, every time I, you know, get a new knife, I always kind of just look it over, feel things around, just rub around and get a feel for what this thing is. Some things, you know, stand out to me that are worth mentioning, and that was one of them that was worth mentioning to me. So could pose a little safety concern, right? But for the most part, it's a pretty safe design. And speaking about safety a little bit more, the lockup on this thing's not going anywhere. I did tune it for the detent to be a little stronger. I tuned it to be a little bit lighter, and I didn't have any up and down, I guess, lock rock or anything like that. Side to side play, it's just non-existent. There is a little bit of play within the pivot barrel. Nothing crazy. Yeah, you really gotta muscle it to really feel it, but it's there. Not a big deal. At this price point, that's just an irrelevant complaint, honestly. So, and I know sometimes I have complained about that on budget knives, but that's just because maybe I just have too high of a standard on budget knives. So, but I always want to see manufacturers just pushing the envelope on quality and finish, and this is one that definitely has surprised me. There are a lot of elements to this that have made this a joy to use. The detent, it is tuned perfectly, and I was able to mess around with it a little bit. I decided that to bring it back to the detent that it essentially came from the factory. I might have had it a little bit stronger, but you know what, I don't mind it. It's still very snappy and stupid smooth, and it's cranked down all the way. Like the pivot is cranked down all the way. This does have a captured pivot, but there is a lot of movement within the tolerance of the captured space. There's a little bar that's part of the G10 that looked like it got chewed up, or some spaces weren't just that well machined. So the pivot is never going to be perfectly centered. That's on my unit. Yours may be a little bit different. So if I were to loosen up the pivot, and it's also flush on both sides. I like that, like completely flush. That's wonderful. But yeah, I tried to get it to as centered as possible with the M logo. I don't mind it. It's not it doesn't bother me at all. But that is something that I noticed, that I like that the attempt was there, and it works. It definitely works. I do definitely appreciate captured pivots, but there's a lot of play within that captured pivot there. The deployment, you have an avocado shaped hole. You can really put some force behind it. The way that it's shaped, you can just get your thumb in there and just push it out. The action on this, the release of the detent to deploy that blade, is almost just as satisfying as my f5.5. You know what? Let me actually get it out here really quick just to share that with you guys. Where is it? It's right here. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So this has a bean hole. It's a jelly bean hole. It's not an avocado shaped hole like this. But you know what? The feeling is just the same. But if anything, the Miguron knife is a little less sharp, but it's bigger, so it's more comfortable. This is smaller, but it's a little bit sharper, so the quality is still the same. The snap is still just as good, the release. But you know what? Reverse flicking the Miguron knife is way more comfortable than reverse flicking the f5.5 in my opinion. The hole is just, it's a little too small, a little too tight for me. My favorite method to deploy my f5.5 is always going to be the thumb flick. It's very comfortable. I can do it all day long. But with this, I can truly do thumb flick and reverse flick all day long. And disengaging it, I mean, just looking down straight at it, look at all that space, right? And it's a thick knife. So if you have meatier fingers than I do, I think that this will be just as comfortable for you as it is for me to disengage. There's no detent ramp, doesn't really need it as long as you push the bar over all the way. This thing is swinging down on your nail, so just be a little cautious of that. If you place it right, you will fall right on the, I guess, the finger troller space. And even if, like I'm planning to do, if you decide to blunten the very, very little edge of that, because if your finger's further down, that will continuously knock into your thumb. And if you're doing this sitting on your couch or just walking around and you're flipping the knife and it's constantly dropping on your finger, that might be something that's gonna pick at your thumb and really make it look ratty. So that's something to think about too. The 3 relief cuts here, after taking this knife apart and cleaning it, everything is very well machined and softened up. These were not left jagged or raw like how on a lot of like cheap, like I would actually call them cheap knives. So that's a little attention to detail that I very much appreciate. Let's start talking about the hardware on this thing, or I should have already talked about it at this point, but everything is T8. Oh my god, what a concept. T8, 1 bit to take apart a whole knife. That's crazy. This is groundbreaking, right? Yeah, I mean, come on. That's insane that idea has been put on a sub $50 knife, and there are knives that cost way more that you need multiple tools to take apart. For example, my hinder, I need 1, a spanner bit, 2, a giant flathead screwdriver, 3, T6, and 4, a regular Phillips small. So yeah, wow. I know there's ways around it. There's upgrades in hardware and things like that. But for the example here, you know, a lot of knives you need multiple tools to take apart. This is truly a perfect knife because you can carry something like this and something like this, and this is all you'll need truly to maintain this knife. If you want to carry around a little bottle of KPL, and I mean, that'd be cool too. I mean, they're really small little bottles. Unless like you live in a really dusty and dirty environment, I don't see why you would need one to be in your EDC. But this is perfect because here you have a strap, nice little skinny strap that gets the job done. Here you have a little tie bit driver, the Ostap Hill design from Civivi. It was like 40 bucks. Kind of pricey for what it is, but at least, you know, you're able to customize it if you want. So I anodized this. It has a T6 and a T8, and you know what? This is a pretty quality bit. I haven't chewed up the teeth on this hardly at all. So, and I don't use this thing all too often. And you know what? Another cool thing too, it has O-rings. So to keep any moisture from getting in there and possibly rusting out anything. So that's cool. So this is going to be a highly recommendable knife for me. Essentially a perfect budget knife. It even has a milled titanium clip. They didn't need to do this. This doesn't belong in here. This doesn't need to be here at this price point, but they did it. That's cool. And you know what? It goes into the pocket perfectly fine. They could have been just putting a regular wire clip or a regular bent steel clip, whether it was deep or not deep carry, it would have been just fine and people would buy them at the same rate. But you know what? They did that. This is a flex right here for this model, in my opinion, and that's wonderful. So if you want, you know, you can also anodize or put some different kind of finish on there. I mentioned in my unboxing that there is a pivot ring around the actual pivot screw. I thought it was titanium because there's another colorway of this that it's essentially all blacked out and it has a matching pivot ring and tie clip. And Kevin from Lefty EDC, he had that blacked out one and it was color matched. It was like this like blue, right? Like grayish blue color. So I was like, oh, you know, that's pretty cool. That's probably tie. No, it's steel. So I don't know how and what happened, but maybe on the OD green one, maybe it's actually a steel pivot ring And on the blacked out one, maybe it's titanium. I don't know. I haven't talked to Kevin about it. He probably doesn't even watch my stuff, but you know, if you do, thank you, Kevin, for showing me this knife, because this thing is it's actually quite wonderful. So thank you. If you actually watch my stuff, thank you. But yeah, no, this is a wonderful, wonderful knife. I 110% recommend it. It's just been an absolute dream to use. This thing is just, come on, man. Like, there's so many cool things about this thing that, while it is very simple and maybe quite vanilla looking on the surface, this sub $50 knife blows a lot of higher end knives out of the water, because it just gets so many things right, so many simple things right, and it's done so well. It's perfect. So that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this little review rant video of mine. If you guys do, go ahead and give it a like. If you guys are subscribed, thank you so much. I appreciate all your support. If you guys are not subscribed, go ahead and consider subscribing and turning on your notification bell so you're notified of reviews, unboxings, giveaways, all this kind of cool stuff that I got to offer for you guys. So with that being said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.